Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. With the sad passing of the legendary Val Kilmer, well, I thought it would be necessary, of course, to review something of Val Kilmer's, something that he's been in and so on. And yes, that's right, you read the title and you know exactly what it is that has something to do with Val Kilmer that he's in, that I am reviewing. A documentary. Yes, of course. If this was not obvious on what I was going to review in honor / in tribute / in memory of Val Kilmer, yes. You know, and especially watching this as of now, and because, you know, we had lost Val Kilmer, it hits hard, does it not? I mean, I don't know, because for anybody, I guess that goes for everybody, whom have seen it before we lost Val, or to those that are watching it for the first time, which I'm one of them, after we have lost Val. And, you know, even like those that have seen it and are rewatching it now that we've lost Val, yeah, still, hits hard. It definitely does. Now, for me, because, yeah, I mean, I, of course, knew that even after Val had passed away, that I, of course, was going to enjoy this documentary. And, yes, the documentary from Amazon Prime and A24 Studios, yes, Val. Simply titled Val. Yes. This documentary, all about Val Kilmer himself, his life, and the fact that he recorded almost his entire life on video camera. You know, documentary on his life and through the ups and downs that our beloved Val Kilmer had gone through. He went through tough times, for sure. He definitely did. Good moments, happy moments, memories and such, but yeah, most of it, yeah, I mean, especially because all the stuff he went through, from family and sometimes struggling out there, but at the same time, he managed well, I think. You know, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, yeah. Even at a certain point later in his life, like around, like, you know, the early 2010s, yeah, just, it's unfortunate. But yeah, so I, of course, have been meaning to get around to this documentary even before we lost Val, and now that we lost Val, well, the opportunity finally came, and now was the time, and also for me to review it. And I gotta say, yeah, of course, this was no disappointment for me. Every single bit of it, and how this documentary was done, very different than some other documentaries we've seen, you know, because most of the documentaries we have watched and seen, like, people are sitting there in a chair and they're talking and such. Now, this one being completely different, and this is not the first and last one we've seen how it's done, you know what I'm saying? Just, yeah. Yeah, and for me, because I knew a couple of things that Val went through in life. Like, yeah, I mean, he lost, like, some of the things I knew, of course, was, like, at a certain point in, like, you know, was it the early 90s or something? Yeah, because, like, you know, my point being is that, you know, when he sadly lost his father, and what his ex-wife did when, you know, filing for a divorce, and, of course, most notably when, like, you know, he unfortunately had throat cancer, and it affected his vocal cords, and, yeah. But, you know, there's a lot of other things that I did not know about Val until when watching this documentary. So, yeah. And, it's amazing, the fact that how much footage he had recorded on a video camera. And apparently, according to him, according to him, like, he was like the first person to own a personal video camera and such, you know? Well, besides, like, that was, like, yeah, in the 80s, people starting to have their own home video cameras, and, you know, I mean, it's, like, recording, like, what you're doing in your life, or special things you're doing, like, well, I mean, hey, when, like, say, you're going to the Disney parks, like, there you go. My dad had one of those, but, yeah, yeah, just This documentary, it's very moving. It really is. Everything about it from beginning to end, what it has to offer, what goes on, and what we learn, things that we never knew about Val that much until when watching this documentary. Just, yeah, you get my point. Overall, Val, it's an excellent documentary on the legendary Val Kilmer. Yeah, it's all right. Okay, so now, as always, for me, now that I've talked about the first things I've had to say, now read the description / the story. It's a very short one, but, still, I feel like reading it, as I always do. A documentary centering on the daily life of actor Val Kilmer, featuring never-before-seen footage spanning 40 years. Yeah, so... Yeah, and again, because, all that footage he's kept, and for the first time ever in this documentary exclusively, we're seeing that, and span of 40 years, recording his life, just, wow, okay. All right, and first off, have to acknowledge, say, the people who were responsible for this documentary. Val, obviously, he was producer, cinematographer, and also the directors, Teen Pooh and Leo Scott. Yep. And also his kids being heavily involved in this documentary. Not to mention his son being the narrator and, speaking on behalf of his father. Reading the lines and words that come straight from his father. Yeah, Jack Kilmer. So yeah, and the only ones that are actually in this documentary, because there's a lot that do appear, but only through archive footage, and obviously from the home, recording tapes of Val Kilmer. Yeah, those who do appear in the documentary are, of course, the entire Kilmer family themselves, even his ex-wife, until we get to her. Yeah, but, so this documentary, I don't know where to start, because, well, because, Val, his childhood and, his family, of course, and with his siblings, and the fact that he was making, his very own movies, doing a parody of Jaws and such. That was great. And even when he, would later on get to go to, say, acting school at the Juilliard School and such. You know what that is. And getting to go to New York, that being one of the first big cities he would go to, then when he would make his way to London, and slowly but surely he would make it to the big top, and even when he would first fall in love with someone whom he saw on stage performing at London, and that, of course, being, well, his now ex-wife, of course, actress Joanne Whalley, so So he first encountered her, he didn't physically, didn't get to go up and meet her or anything. He just saw her perform and such, on stage, and, it's obvious that he had a crush on her at first, But boy, until he would get to actually work with her and fall in love with her again, and she would as well, but until we get there. And also, when we would cut to present time, and at the time of this documentary, Val, and because, of course, that point, his vocal cords, and because of throat cancer, and, what he's doing as of today, and his home, and the fact that he lives in the same house with his daughter, they live next door to one another, those kind of houses, and, of course, we have to acknowledge his only daughter, Mercedes, I might be butchering her name some, but you know me sometimes, okay? Bear with me. Of course, her appearing in this documentary, and, because this was funny, because, they FaceTime each other, they're each of them are getting ready, and she's getting all glamored and such, and literally, because they walk out the door, they're right next door to one another. That's funny, because, well, because hey, people still would FaceTime one another, even if, say, they live next door to one another. You get my point, and all the various locations that Kilmer travels to, and part of this documentary, the places that he was at, and the places he hadn't been for a couple of years, getting to go back to, like, say, New York, London, and, yeah, the key locations of, Val, are Chatsworth, California. That was, because when talking about Kilmer's childhood, and the fact that, his late father was a big-time business guy, and he owned a lot of land and building houses and such, and choosing on whom will be the neighbors, if you know about that kind of business. Well, overall, because Val's parents, they were great parents towards him and his siblings, and because, well, to go ahead and bring this up, because I had no idea about this until the documentary, where one of his siblings, his brother Wesley Kilmer, unfortunately died at a young age, like I think around 15. He drowned in the back door, the house pool, and was with their father at that time, and that put a huge damper, like, it affected Val Kilmer's father, because not being responsible for, one of his sons, and which would lead to, his accidental drowning, like, and also the fact that he didn't take his pills and such, just, it's very tragic. But of course, like, it was an accident, and of course, nothing intentional for that to happen, and so on. And also the fact that at a very young age, Val's parents divorced because apparently his father had various affairs. Jeez Louise. But and Val's mother, most notably, she was a sweetheart, and with how Val was describing about his mom, and through the various recordings of when he was capturing his mother on camera and such, and when she found a new person in her life, a new love, and Val's stepfather, it didn't go well at first, but then he started to realize and connect and click with him, and seeing how much of a wholesome guy his stepfather was. The other locations, like, because visiting some of the movie sets that he was on, and also, like the present-day settings, let's talk about, like, say, when it came to him really getting into acting. He was starting to make a big top, like, when one of his first movies being 1984's Top Secret. That's technically what got him into high gear, kind of, and even when he did, like, say, Real Genius. But, of course, just, like, 2 years after doing those two movies, from Top Secret and Real Genius, when he would make his way to Top Gun. And fun fact, and as Val mentions, that he actually didn't want to do Top Gun at first, but he was under contract, and he couldn't bail out. There's nothing he can do. He was under contract and such with Paramount, so he had to do it. But eventually, when he actually got to do the movie, when he was on set and worked with the late Tony Scott and his fellow cast members, like, most notably Tom Cruise, he was starting to enjoy it and have a great time. And apparently at first, there wasn't that much for Iceman in the script, but Val took it upon himself to make Iceman be more, and helping create Iceman's own backstory and so on. And good on Val Kilmer, because definitely, Iceman would become a favorite character of that film. And right next to, well, Tom Cruise's character. And because Top Gun, launching Val Kilmer into high gear along with his other fellow Top Gun cast members. And, another thing is that Val's Top Gun cast members, like, they were kind of in that same territory as he was. The movies that they were doing in the early 1980s until they all came together and they were casted in Top Gun. But just overall, not only for Val, but for everyone else, including Tom Cruise, Top Gun is what sent them skyrocketing, So, and the later films that Val would do, and even when it would come up to, say, him being a part of Willow, and where he would actually get to work with whom would become his future wife in a few years, Joanne Whalley. Yep, he fell in love with her once again, and so did she. And They tied the ring in, 1988, and, man, because they were so happy back then when they were first married. Val's family, of course, being there, his mother, stepfather, and his own father, just, yeah. And also, more on his father because, at a certain point, Val was brought in by his father to help with him, and because of land buying and so on, and neighborhoods, that whole stuff. And Val, he did proceed on helping with his father. Like, either he could have sued his father or helped with his father, paying and such, and, well, that's what he did. And no hate bone, I guess you could say, towards, for Val, towards his father. And even when, like, say, later on, Val would have children along with his wife, and thus, I believe, because, their daughter came first, and then their son Jack, so, and the later films that Val would get to do, but also, some of the locations that he would go to and revisiting some memories, and even when it comes to the fans, and it's, as from what we can tell in the documentary, he has a lot of love and appreciation for the fans who love him, and even when, like, say, going to some conventions, but even, like, say, when we do see in the documentary when he's at a convention that he has to take a break, he has to lay down, and even when he's being carried out, on a wheelchair, and he's covered by a sheet, just, because of his conditions. And more of the home recordings that Val would do, and, seeing some recordings of how happy life is for Val and his family, it's very small, but still, it's great. And even, like, say, then he would come up to, say, doing another biggie film for him, which, of course, being Tombstone. Yes, and Tombstone is another one that, because made him go big, and especially a lot of compliments that are said about his character in Tombstone, Doc Holliday. And even, like, say, when it comes to Doc Holliday's death scene where, he's in, like, a hospital bed, and Kurt Russell's character, Wyatt Earp, is there, just, And apparently, because Val Kilmer had ice covered, had a bed on top of covering ice and such, because, Val wanted to give something really, something really good for his final moments as his character, and when he was dying and how sick he was, just, it was pretty good. And even when we see Val in present time and in the documentary, he attends a screening of Tombstone. I'm pretty sure, because it's at the location where Tombstone was filmed, somewhere in that area. And Val is there, and, because they're screening Tombstone outside in the evening time, and Val roaming through the, like, Western-themed street, because, because interacting with more fans and signing autographs, that was great. And also, another thing is that Val, with his home video camera, would do auditions. Because we get some of his auditions on tape, and at one point he auditioned for Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. He sent those tapes to Kubrick himself in person, and trying different accents and personalities for a character he was playing, and of course he didn't get to be a part of Full Metal Jacket, but it would have been awesome if he did. And also another audition he did, which being Doors. Yes, of course, have to mention Doors. And thankfully, those that were doing Doors were impressed with Val's auditions, and thus he got the part. Yes. But also, back at home, because, another thing is that Val and his wife, they found a new life. Like, when they were starting their life together, they began it in New Mexico, having their own property, land, and such, and through the home recordings of what he shot in New Mexico, their home, and with their children. From what we saw in those tapes, it was great. But at the same time, and especially, sometime in the early 90s, and, because, when it came to Doors, and according to Val, life for him and his wife, and their home in New Mexico was hell. And, because them being away so much and because of their acting, and most notably Val, yeah, just driving them apart, you know. But, you know, it's, for me, I'm still hesitant on what she did, what Joanne, again, no hard feelings to Joanne, but still, what she would do at a certain point, like in 1995, until I get there, just, God, you know, that was I'm just saying, like, yeah, that was a dick move. That there's no denying that was a dick move on what she did. Just, yeah, unbeknownst to Val. Seriously, that's unbelievable. You know, for someone unbeknownst, but until I get more into that, just, yeah, back to where I was, because, yeah. Well, of course, Doors was another success for Val, and, you know, studying whom he was portraying in Doors, and rehearsing and singing the songs and studying the movements, yes, of Jim Morrison, whom he was portraying, yeah. And man, did he succeed. Did he succeed? Without a doubt. Anybody that has seen the biopic of The Doors, yeah. And later films that he would do, well, I mean, yeah, because again, like Tombstone being one of them, and then when it would come to say, I mean, of course, it had to be brought. There was no doubt that this would have been brought up in the documentary. Yes, even though this is a different church, still, like, this still counts. You know, Batman. Yes, when he was asked, when at one point he was in Africa and he was called up, you know, how would you feel of becoming the next Batman? Which, yes, around that time, Joel Schumacher was stepping in the world of Batman to helm the next big Batman picture after Tim Burton with the first two Batman films, and yeah. And Val, he was surprised and so on with what he was describing, and well, because at a young age, he was a fan of Batman, and best said by Val, and there's no doubt about it even to this day, everybody wants to be Batman. Not just because, you know, wanting to play Batman in a movie, just be him in general, you know, just dress up as the Dark Knight / Cape Crusader. And fun fact, and as it's brought up in the documentary, Val actually, at a young age and with his family, got to visit the set of the 60s Batman show. And even, according to Val, his father, you know, lifted him up and putting him in the Batmobile. How awesome is that? And to think that years later, and even after Val would make it big time as an actor, to think that, yeah, he would get to play Batman, just amazing, a dream come true, right? It's one of those things. But at the same time, when he did do Batman Forever, being on set, and when putting on that Batman getup, yeah, not what he was expecting. Yeah, because when putting on that suit, it was not comfortable, and even, like, say, because as best described, like, you know, turning, and you have to be helped to be sat down and such, just, yeah. Well, and, you know, I think as of now, because, yeah, when it comes to the superhero suits, and even Batman, they've evolved, you know, on how to make the suits and to make it feel really good on the actors, you know? And besides, you know, despite what Val Kilmer went through in that Batman suit, he still turned out to be a pretty good Bruce Wayne / Batman. Yeah, because, yeah, that especially goes for Bruce Wayne. A lot of people, even I think so too, that, yeah, definitely played a pretty good Bruce Wayne. But of course, you know, the alter ego Batman, so yeah. And also, yeah, even after when Batman Forever came out, because it was mixed receive, and yeah. And Val was, he would have done the next Batman film, but yeah, he chose not to, and he did another film where, because, you know, like, yeah, because, like, after doing Batman Forever, he would do, say, Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, and to him it felt like an indie film, and with what it was like doing Heat, and after his experience with Batman Forever. And some of the other films he did, like, yeah, that one where he plays one character who goes through different disguises. Like, he did that over coming back as the Dark Knight. So, yeah, that movie. I will put a text of the name of that movie, because, yeah, I have to. So, yeah. But then, at a certain point in his acting career, in his life, yeah, it was not looking good. In 1996, we got the, you know, I mean, obviously, they wanted it to be a pretty good remake, but sadly, it turned out to be really bad luck, and that being the remake of The Island of Dr. Moreau, if I'm pronouncing that right, where he co-stars alongside with Marlon Brando, and also, David Thewlis? Yeah. Well, yeah, a.k.a. Professor Lupin from the Harry Potter films, yeah. Co-starring along with those two, and not to mention that, yeah, I was right, David Thewlis, yeah, just to make sure. And also Richard Stanley being in it too, because, yeah, it's brought up a good chunk of times in the documentary, and of course I couldn't forget to mention this, where Val admired Marlon Brando, and, you know, the dream of wanting to work with Marlon Brando, and it finally happened, and when, yeah, he wanted to do this movie, especially to be on screen and to be a co-star with Marlon Brando, to work with him. And some of the home recordings of what Val shot while on set doing this movie, yeah, was pretty interesting. And, you know, a few laughs here and there when he was interacting with his fellow cast members, like, you know, most notably David Thewlis and Marlon Brando. And, but at the same time, and yeah, because if you know the history and the making of this movie, yeah, because, pardon my French, but it's true, it went through hell, basically. It was not looking so good from the start, from the very beginning when they first started this movie. Change of directors, Marlon Brando was going through some personal stuff, like he was starting to recover from the loss of his daughter from suicide, but also, while Val was on set, you know, while working on this movie, he was away, he was at Australia doing this movie. The fact that he learned that his wife was filing for divorce, and him receiving the divorce papers, unbeknownst to Val. Like I said earlier, what Joanne Whalley did, unbeknownst to Val, it was a dick move. There's no doubt about it. But again, like, I have no hatred towards Joanne Whalley, just look, but there's no denying that, yeah, why do people doing that sometimes, like, that's horrible. It really is. And yes, granted, because, and even as Val put it at best, that them being away from each other and how much that they were busy with their acting careers, most notably Val, yeah, it was drifting them apart, sadly. Yeah. It was a happy married life for them, but for it to go downhill, it was unfortunate. It really was. But just, yeah, and the fact that the behavior towards, like, say, the new director and so on, just not good. Even, like, this was on camera when, like, Val set the camera down, the director of The Island of Dr. Moreau, because, you know, telling him to, you know, turn off the camera and so on, but Val's refusing to do so, which, yeah, I mean, we understand why, but, yeah. It's a shame that how much bad luck that remake went through, and just, yeah, not one of Val's finest. And even even that the fact that he had always longed and dreamt of working alongside with Marlon Brando, and how it turned out, yeah. But I'm sure overall at the same time, it was it must have been a great time for Val to be with Marlon Brando. And besides, again, some of the home recordings that he took while filming this movie, and when he's interacting with Marlon Brando and David Thewlis, some laughs and such, just, yeah, they're having some good times. Yeah, and just, like, in Val's later years, and even when, at a certain point, yeah, because some allegations and such towards Val, it made new headlines and news reports, like, you know what this is, like, yeah, like, that's weird. Just, like, you know, even as of today, like, wait a minute, Val was never, why? I mean, because his attitude, and, like, apparently he didn't get along with his co-stars, and, like, when it comes to movies, but, I mean, because the point being is that Val cared so much about movies, and what to bring to movies and such, you know, and the acting, yeah. And also, you know, it was a messy divorce for Val, and especially the custody of their children. The fact that, yeah, because, well, Joanne Whalley took the kids with her to California, while Val Kilmer remained and resided in New Mexico. Yeah. Yeah. Even sending home recordings, to his kids, wishing them a happy Easter and, being a good dad because, like, showing off, like, some things around, like, the trees, like, just, yeah, even, like, say, when he got his son his very own, like, Batmobile, kiddie ride, and it's the Batmobile from Batman Forever. That was great of him. And the later films that he would do, that we would see in a little montage, like, when it came to him for the first time voice acting in DreamWorks' Prince of Egypt, doing, say, The First Sight or, Red Planet, Pollock, and getting to work alongside with Robert Downey Jr., and even, like, Robert Downey Jr., because a little bit of interview footage with him and what he had to say about, Val Kilmer and, addressing that Val Kilmer's Val Kilmer. He's no, like, asshole or anything like that, what Robert says. And even when at one point, and, because to speed things up, because, at a certain point later in his life, in the early 2010s, Val was interested and wanted to portray Mark Twain. And yeah, the whole thing of Val, being Mark Twain and the fact that, what Val Kilmer says in the documentary, that there's a lot of things that he shares that Mark Twain went through, because when it came to loss, tragedies, and stuff like that, Mark Twain, he lost his daughters, while Val lost his brother and a bunch of others, and he wanted to finance and make a movie of his own about Mark Twain, even having to sell his property in New Mexico to get the fundings and stuff like that. And even when at one point, and if anybody knows about this, where he took his portrayal of Mark Twain to stage, doing traveling tours, and even at one point, like, getting this on Broadway, and when this was brought up on Jimmy Fallon's show. And seeing Val Kilmer as Mark Twain was pretty interesting. It really was. And just, the makeup that's applied on him, and doing a pretty good spot-on impression on how Mark Twain spoke, the accent. And seeing Val Kilmer really getting into character, like on a beach sighting or just different places he's at, and when he's performing on stage, when we see footage of him on stage as Mark Twain, it's amazing. And because what he was doing, first getting Mark Twain, him as Mark Twain out on stage, and even up to Broadway, in the hopes and attempts to do a movie on Mark Twain where he plays Mark Twain, of course. But then, at a certain point, when he would become sick, coughing up blood, his vocal cords were getting messed up, and when he developed throat cancer, and he was hoping that this would not have any effect and it wouldn't be so bad, but sadly, it did very quickly. And even when he at first had to delay the upcoming tours, the performances of him as Mark Twain, and sadly, that was it. I mean, obviously, because when it was getting worse and there was no signs that he can be cured and his throat back to normal and his vocals, that was the end of the road. And even he was concerned on, him, how it would affect his acting career. It's tragic. It's tragic. It is. It really is. What that poor man went through, and for that to happen, And also, there's another moment where, and this is after, his vocals got damaged and such, because of throat cancer, where he unfortunately lost his mother, and the entire family was there to head to, for his mother's body to be cremated. Like, his two kids were there, even his ex-wife, herself being in the documentary, appearing, and well, I'm pretty sure, and because, after watching that documentary and actually seeing her on camera, years later and after they divorced, well, I'd like to think that probably, hopefully, because they did patch things up, so even sometimes Val would pull mean jokes on some people, like pulling one mean joke on the cameraman where he tripped but he got the cameraman, or when he whips out some silly string on his ex-wife or his son, and it's glow-in-the-dark silly string. Well, that's Val Kilmer's humor for you, I guess you could say. I mean, it's obvious. We all have our sense of humor, even if, some people don't find it funny at first, but, anyways. So yeah, it's great to see that, yeah, at that moment where, they're traveling and they're gonna drive on the road to, and because of after Val's mother's passing, and when we see more footage of Val's mother on camera, and as they're driving, just, yeah, it's great to see that, a family reunion, they're all together, just, yeah. And Val, in the, like, childhood home, and just, some personal items of his mother's, just, yeah, what happens right there in that documentary, yeah, and even when, like, there's a moment where Val, he breaks down some, just, yeah. And even, like, later on, and after what happened to poor Val with throat cancer and such, he would do something new, and that being an artist, like making paintings and drawings and such, yeah. And just, yeah, because where we're at now in this documentary, and at the time of this documentary, where Val Kilmer is, and, I mean, because, yeah, despite what Val had gone through, everything, just, yeah, the huge downs and ups, But at the same time, Val, he pulled through, and the fans that he would have, and the love and support, and, he would have 2 amazing kids, and just yeah, what more do I have to say? Because, yeah, this documentary is amazing. Val is indeed an excellent documentary all about Val. And, again, even as of now, and because we've lost Val Kilmer himself, how this documentary still hits hard now that we've lost him. Just, you get my point. Everything about Val is really good. From the story on Val's life and through the home recordings, the tapes that he took in the span of 40 years. And I did forget to mention this, where having to go to like a warehouse or something where all of that footage has been kept. Golly. Not getting rid of a single one. And that's good to see. And with how much we see of it in this documentary, I'm pretty sure, yeah, because there's probably more footage that Val took that we probably haven't seen still yet. But, what was in the documentary was pretty good, yeah. And, whom was in those home recordings from his fellow co-stars, and, what his married life was like, and when he would have 2 kids, living in New Mexico, the side of his acting career, some highlights from his acting career, and when, yeah, at a certain point, things were going downhill for Val, and even when things were starting to look good, but then when he developed throat cancer, and when he was doing Mark Twain, just, yeah, overall, Val, it's a good documentary, and definitely a highly recommendation, just, yeah, when it comes to watching documentaries. And I'm giving Val, well, what the heck, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for the documentary on Val Kilmer, simply titled Val. And what about you guys? What did you think of the documentary Val itself? Any of you that got to watch this before we sadly lost Val Kilmer, or any of you that have watched this for the first time now that we've lost Val Kilmer, or anybody who had seen this and are re-watching this now that we've lost Val. You get my point, just, yeah. Did you get quite emotional, and teary-eyed, and, yeah, what were some of your favorite parts in the documentary, and things that you did not know about Val Kilmer until you saw/watched this documentary? Same goes for me. What are some of your favorite movies that Val Kilmer has done, and the ones that are highlighted in this documentary? Just, yeah, overall, what do you think of the documentary, Val itself, and with what I've had to say, my review, and yeah, what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the documentary on Val Kilmer himself, simply titled Val. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video/review. Take care, and yep, may Val Kilmer rest in peace, and peace out.